And we're back like we never left. Oregon fans, what's going on? How we living? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. It's Thursday, June 20th, 2024, and I'm your host, Max Torres, with Scoop Duck on 3, coming to you from Long Beach, California. Got an absolutely massive episode of the podcast for you guys today, as Justin Hopkins and myself preview Oregon's huge June 21st official visit weekend. Plenty to get into today. But before we do that, the Ducks Dish podcast is brought to you by Ranchito Grill in Springfield. Not sure what your dinner plans are tonight, but head on over to Ranchito at 1537 Mohawk Boulevard and try their homemade tortillas. They got great food, a great environment, and they will take care of you. Say what's up to my guy, Ruben, and let him know that Max Torres sent you. Not rolling solo, joined by my partner in crime over at Scoop Duck, owner and publisher, Justin Hopkins. J-Hop, how the heck are you?
I'm good. It's Thirsty Thursday, and Oregon's got a sea of 5 stars headed to campus. What could be better?
And we're going to be previewing a lot of those visits and getting into some of the biggest names, Justin. So if you guys are tuned in, I'm coming to you on my Twitter at mtorresports, as well as on the Scoop Duck YouTube channel. Throw some questions our way. Throw a comment in the live chat and let us know how you're feeling about what is potentially I don't know if this is over dramatic, Justin, but the biggest recruiting weekend in Oregon history. Like, I think that might be a good place to just kind of start things off here before we dive into specifics. Is this the biggest weekend? This is the biggest weekend I think I've ever seen in my 6-year career, but what do you think?
This is the biggest weekend that's come to fruition. And so what I mean by that is we've had some others and some lists, that have come out. It's like, oh man, look at all these guys coming, and half the list kind of fizzles out, or, you lose half the 5 stars or whatever. This is a bona fide list. These guys are showing up. This is the biggest weekend. I mean, not only do you have a quantity, almost 20 guys on campus, you have quality. That doesn't even count the fact that Jakeem Stewart visited what was it, yesterday and today, I think. So, I mean, and that's another 5 stars. So unreal. It's an unreal list.
So the lead up to the weekend was incredibly impressive, but the weekend is where Oregon's really going to try to leave their mark here, Justin. And I think the last point that I want to get into before we discuss some of these guys in specific or in particular, we're not necessarily expecting a lot of commitments or an avalanche of commitments coming out of this weekend. Maybe that happens. I think I'd be down because it'd be fun to write about. But it's always important with weekends like this, I think, to kind of temper expectations a little bit. I know you had a post on the boards the other day just talking about our scheduling challenge, should we say, coming up, that guarantee of commitments. But just because you're hosting these huge weekends, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be getting a ton of verbals coming out of the weekend necessarily.
No, typically doesn't. I think Oregon will end up with some commits in the coming weeks, and I think that's because of the timeline of where recruiting is at. A lot of these guys are took visits these last 3 to 4 weeks leading up to this point. But I agree with you, just because there's, 18, 19, 20 guys, whatever, on campus doesn't mean that on Monday there's going to be 5 commits of guys that visited this weekend. I do think that number that I just said, I think 5 is a really good line for us to set, basically for the next, we'll just say 2 weeks. Does Oregon end up with 5 commits? Do they end up with less than 5, more than 5? I think that's a good talking point, at least for Oregon fans. I think it's a realistic number, but again, it kind of depends on those 5. And I think we're at 9 commits now. So let's just say Oregon got 5. That puts them at 14. I still don't think this is going to be a huge class. I don't think it's going to be 30. Maybe it's 25, which might be tough for Dan Lanning to do, not impossible. But let's say they end up around 14 or 15, you're 2/3 of the way done already. And it's, whatever the date is, it's July. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's almost July, and it's a busy time for you and I, Justin. And if you guys are listening to us on the podcast or watching us here on YouTube or Twitter, check us out at scoopduck.com. $1 gets you 3 months, I believe, of access. And I mean, we like doing this on camera stuff and everything, but we always prioritize the written portion of everything, talking with our subscribers and everybody, and building our community on the message boards. So make sure you guys check us out over there if you haven't already. Well, Justin, I think we've built up everything long enough. Let's talk about one of the headliners and one of a handful of 5-star recruits that's heading to Eugene this weekend, and that is Cleveland, Ohio, Shaker Heights safety Trey McNutt. He is one of the absolute priorities for Dan Lanning, Chris Hampton, and the rest of this coaching staff in the 2025 class as they look to get the ball rolling a bit more on defense. He is fresh off of an official visit to Texas A&M, and I wrote this in my Torres' take earlier this week. It was kind of a big statement, but I think Oregon leads going into this visit.
Yeah, you've been banging the drum on that, I think for a couple weeks now, and I guess to just keep going with that, you've been banging the drum a little bit louder and a little bit louder kind of in the last couple of weeks. And so I want to agree with you. I actually do think that Oregon leads here, and that's ahead of the visit. And in my experience from doing this for a really long time, that bodes well for the Ducks. Whenever they're, maybe the team to beat with a guy coming on campus, that becomes a really good situation for Oregon. So this is a paramount, like just a critical piece, because I think we both agree, and we've talked about this already. I think they would like to sign 2 to 3 corners and 2 to 3 safeties. I don't think they can sign 3 of each, but you get my point, somewhere around those numbers. And when you can start your safety recruiting with a guy like Trey McNutt, it sure makes life a lot easier for Coach Hampton to go find that second guy, or possibly say, I'm going to go get a second guy and maybe just work on a third guy that's an elite dude, Jonah Williams, whatever you pick, and there's a bunch of them. But to get a guy like McNutt in the fall, and again, we're not saying that he commits this weekend. We're not saying that he commits on Monday, but if Oregon can get his commitment maybe in the next couple of weeks, it really is going to free things up. And I'm with you. I do think Oregon is the team to beat right now.
And McNutt, it's an interesting story because he's from the state of Ohio. So for a long time in this recruitment, Justin, it was Ohio State, Ohio State, Ohio State, and understandably so, right? I mean, Ohio State is up there with some of the best in the country for keeping the best players in state, keeping them playing their college ball in Columbus. But Oregon has made a move here. They did get him on campus earlier this spring. I want to say it was for one of those junior visits, so maybe that was winter at the time. But he spoke glowingly in Nashville when I spoke with him at the On3 Elite Series just about this Oregon staff and the vision that they have and what they're building. Coach Wadood is a big factor in this recruitment. So, yeah, kind of like you said, I mean, don't be surprised if the buzz continues to build here for Oregon with Trey McNutt coming out of this visit. We know how important the safety position is for Oregon. And I've said for a little bit now, right, that I think the Ducks really wanted and kind of need to get at least one of those big 3 that they were after, with Fahim Delaney committing to Ohio State last week. Jonah Williams is also coming this week. He's another safety we'll probably talk about a little bit. But I think Trey McNutt has kind of been the best, the most realistic guy that they have a shot at with the 5-star safeties, I guess.
I think that's the best way to phrase it. You said it just right there. Probably the guy Oregon's in the best shape with right now. Doesn't mean they couldn't end up with some of the other guys, but if we're being realistic, this is probably the guy that you feel Oregon has the best shot with right now.
Let's keep it rolling with another big time 5-star official visitor that is heading to Eugene this weekend, and that is Zephyr Hills cornerback DJ Pickett, the number 1 cornerback according to On3 in the class of 2025. He has taken a recent official visits to Miami and LSU and Georgia, I think. Let me know if I'm missing any there, Justin, but I think those are the main ones that he has seen recently. But he was kind of saying, coming out of On3 Elite, right? Yet another one of those top tier guys we got exclusive access to, that Oregon is kind of a school that people shouldn't sleep on in his recruitment. And he's got a little bit of a different situation because he's going to be pushing his decision all the way into the season right now, looking like October 5th is what he told me.
Yeah, and I know we talked about him recently. It might have been this week. I don't recall. We're doing a lot of shows, which is great. But I do think that October timeline for him making a decision reflects more on like Florida and Miami, possibly even LSU, just to kind of see what these teams look like in the fall. I don't think there's a lot of concerns about Oregon in that regard. I think it speaks more to those. And I know I did see a thing today. I think it was with the On3 Twitter handle that, the toughest schedules in football. Florida was at the top, with the toughest schedules in college football. And I agree. They got a tough schedule and their coach is on the hot seat. So, I think Florida is probably Oregon's biggest threat for Pickett. You can never discount LSU. I know Miami's another one, but I think it really talks about that a lot. And if you're an Oregon fan and you want to see the Ducks get Pickett, I don't think you'd mind seeing Florida flop a little bit. But the one thing I'll say, and Oregon is in a unique position. They're a really good program and built really well. But some of these elite guys like this are going to walk into a situation where playtime is available. There's going to be playtime next year at corner. There's going to be playtime available next year at safety. So I think that's a big selling point for the Ducks with Pickett, McNutt, and some of these other guys. Like, hey, come on in and you could earn a spot in year one potentially.
And Oregon does have some momentum on their side as far as just what they've been able to do in the secondary just in the past couple of years, right? Producing a first-round draft pick and Christian Gonzalez, who's with the Patriots now. And then also, I think something that plays to their advantage, which, I don't know, I think you could make the argument for or against, but I think with a high-profile guy, you can't get more high-profile if you're a DB than DJ Pickett, and a guy from Florida, I think it kind of helps Oregon that he's not deciding until October for two reasons. The first one being, if Oregon has the season we think they're going to have, that's only going to make them look like a more attractive destination for DJ Pickett. And then the second reason is, and I feel like we've talked about it a lot, and it's on the board sometimes, people are asking, well, why can't Oregon get these high-profile guys in the fold earlier? Honestly, I don't know if you want to, because then it just makes it even harder to hold on to those guys for the long term. And I think that, you're still putting in work. It's not like you're putting the foot off the gas by any means if he's not committed. But I don't know. I feel like that makes a lot of sense, but maybe I could have done a better job explaining it.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Like if I was in Dan Lanning's position and I was recruiting these 5 stars, I would way rather have them commit in October, November, December than now, because basically all they're doing if they commit in June, July, or even August, okay, basically they're just telling the other schools who leads. That's all they're doing when they commit. Like it's fine and well to assume that they're going to remain committed, but these are 17-year-old kids. They change their mind like they change their underwear, and I get it. I mean, I got a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. I exactly know what they're going through, and I get it. So I'm not blaming any of these kids. If I was Dan Lanning, I would much rather have, maybe Trey McNutt and some of these other guys making decisions in October or November, because I think you feel a lot better doing it that way. But by no means, if DJ Pickett called you up tomorrow and said, hey, I want to commit tomorrow, you're not going to tell him no. You're of course going to tell him yes. But I think that's what you were trying to say, and I totally agree with you.
And the last thing I'll add on Pickett here before we move on to our next guy, Justin, maybe it's an added bonus that he's making this trip alongside Dallas Wilson, who's also from the Tampa area and already committed. So both of those guys were out in Nashville on 3 Elite, but we know that Oregon is trying to build that Tampa pipeline, and they got Zaire Addison and Zaire Addison and Dallas Wilson in the fold to kind of get off to a good start here. So the Ducks will do everything they can to, I think, improve their standing with DJ Pickett. But if I were kind of putting money on it, I doubt this is going to be his last trip to Eugene before he makes his final decision, which could be all the way down the road in December. But man, we got a great group of people here on the live stream. Really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to talk some Ducks with us. It is a huge time in Oregon football recruiting right now, and we are super stoked to have you along. Justin, let's stay on the defensive side of the ball here and stay in the secondary a little bit and talk about Jonah Williams, the 5-star safety out of Galveston, Texas, Ball High School. He is a name that has been to Oregon a handful of times, and he recently made it out to Eugene. in May, I want to say. If not, the spring, sometime in the spring. What do you think about where Oregon stands here heading into this trip?
I think when it comes to Williams, I think Oregon is in a better spot with Williams than most people think, similar to DJ Pickett. But I'm having a tougher time seeing this one end up going in Oregon's favor. This seems like a Midwest kid, a Texas kid at heart, and he's going to be really, really tough to pull. I know he's got a lot of family down there. I just think this one's going to be tough. I know we already mentioned it. If we're looking at the safeties on the board and we're looking at the 5 stars or the high 4 stars, you and I both feel better about Trey McNutt than Jonah Williams. And, I assume that's the case. And I just think that this one will be tough. But I also think this. I think Oregon's prepared to play the long game here. I think Jonah Williams is a guy that maybe comes off the board sometime in June or July. But I expect that's not the last that we hear of him. I think this is a guy Oregon might have on top of their safety board just because of his skill set. Reminds me a lot of what's his name, Caleb Williams, that left Alabama and went to Ohio State. Caleb Downs, excuse me. That kind of player that's just unique and has such a incredible skill set. We both know Oregon's got a need for safety next year for these guys to come in and play. And I think Jonah Williams is up there. So I don't think he'll end up at Oregon if he commits in the next month, but I'm not saying he won't end up signing with Oregon, because I think Oregon will kind of maybe continue like they did with Peyton Bowen a couple of years ago.
And he's already taken trips, Justin, of the official variety out to LSU and I believe Texas A&M as well. So A&M does seem like the team to beat here based on my pulse for this recruitment and just kind of some of the stuff that I was able to gather, over the last month or so. He's just going to be a tough pull out of the state of Texas, to your point about him being a Texas kid at heart, and the fact that baseball is playing a really significant role, I should say, in this decision. We don't even know if he's going to end up playing college football. Like he legitimately might be in the MLB sooner than he is in a college classroom. So we'll see what kind of weight that carries. I saw someone in the live chat, Andrew, said that he'd love to get Justin Williams, but Oregon's baseball getting housed by Texas A&M probably killed that dream. I don't know if I'm saying that necessarily, but obviously I bet that didn't help Oregon in the head-to-head if we're just looking at baseball. But I think that you make a good point about maybe Oregon playing the long game. And I think that if they do play the long game and they find themselves in that situation, I think that's where an official visit like this one with Jonah Williams could end up being very beneficial down the road. So I think that we've pretty much covered what we want to on Jonah Williams. I mean, he's a guy that you love getting on campus if you're Oregon. A trip like this never hurts. But I don't think that either you or I are overly confident right now about Oregon's chances in the more immediate future.
Well, one thing to think about, I think Mike Elko is a good hire for Texas A&M, but he's got his work cut out for them. So, that's going to be a big move for Elko going to the SEC, Texas A&M. The expectations are big. So if you're Oregon and Jonah Williams, maybe he does go to Texas A&M, but maybe Texas A&M has a tough first season under Mike Elko. Totally plausible to think about that. That might create an opening for Oregon, maybe to circle back in October, November, December there. We'll see.
We will see. It's I don't know if I want to – could you call it a rebuild at A&M? I mean, they did lose a lot of people in that historic class, but it just doesn't seem like it makes sense to call it a rebuild at A&M because it is one of the biggest names in college football, even though they don't tend to do too terrifically well. That definitely doesn't make sense. They don't do that well on the field, but they've got the resources to compete for anybody. So I think it's going to be fun to see how 23 treats them. 24.
I think that A&M job right now today is somewhat similar to what Lanning inherited at Oregon when Mario Cristobal left, right? You inherited a good roster. Was it a great roster? It's probably a push. It wasn't a terrible roster. I think he's got a good roster, and I'm sure there's holes on that team like there would be on any team when there's a coaching changeover. But like you said, they landed some really good recruiting classes a couple of years under Jimbo, but a lot of those dudes left. So I don't know. And you're in the SEC. That's going to be a tough ass conference this year. They've got, I mean, Ole Miss is no joke. Obviously, Bama's there. Auburn's trending up. LSU's got Brian. I mean, you got some really good football teams there. So it'll be tough sledding for A&M for sure.
Well, let's stay in the Lone Star State for our next visitor, Justin. Staying with our 5-star theme, that's just how insane this weekend is. Let's talk about San Antonio Alamo Heights athlete Michael Terry III. He's taking his official visit to Oregon this weekend. A trip that may end up being his last official visit. I don't think I've heard anything concrete on his decision timeline just yet, but he's also taken official visits out to Nebraska as well as Texas in his recruitment. There might be a school or two that I'm missing there, but I know he's taken those 2 trips for sure. And Eric Nalin over there at Inside Texas has an RPM in for Texas. But this is a guy, Justin, that I think Oregon's kind of glad to be bringing in here to close out the month. We know about Oregon's strong San Antonio ties, but the wrinkle that I'm kind of interested in, I'm going to write about it today in our in-depth visitor preview. Do the recruitments of Michael Terry and Jordan Davison have any overlap, or do they impact each other in any way? Because we know Davison's heading to Ohio State this weekend for his last official visit. Seems like a decision is expected not too far off from that trip, not too long after that trip, I mean. So I don't know if Oregon finds themselves in a position to potentially land both of these guys. It looks like Oregon's primarily looking at Terry as a running back, but like I've said recently, I think one of the sources I spoke with in San Antonio seems to think that he's best suited at receiver. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that factors into this recruitment, if at all.
Yeah, no, very much reminds me of a taller Josh Huff, like just a guy that literally you just want to get the football in his hands, like, you know, and whether it's at receiver or whether it's at running back, whether it's in the Wildcat, this is very much Josh Huff 2.0, in my opinion, just, you know, one of those elite level athletes. And I think this is a guy that I don't want to say that Oregon leads for, but I do think that Oregon is quite possibly the team to beat. I think Texas, you know, could be if they turned up the heat, but I mean, they've, again, if we're considering him maybe more a receiver, regardless of, you know, what Oregon's telling him, you know, Texas has recruited wide receiver really well so far in this cycle. And I think Texas is going to be really tough to beat for Dakorien Moore. So I think if that's the case, you know, I think you kind of see Oregon slide in there. And let's just say that we're going to call Michael Terry a running back. Okay. If Oregon lands Michael Terry and misses out Jordan Davison, there's not going to be too many fans that are too sad with that exchange. And that's no slight to Davison. But if you're not getting Davison and you're getting Michael Terry, I don't think anybody's going to be upset. That's you know, these are both really good football players. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I know that, you know, I was able to get in touch with Terry real quick, and he told me his parents are coming with him out to Eugene this weekend. You know, that's what you want if you're Oregon. You want mom and dad coming, and that's going to be the key to this thing, I think, getting mom and dad on board with maybe potentially seeing their young man play outside the Lone Star State.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here I like your point on Davison. It's like if you do potentially miss on Davison, I don't think that Terry is like a consolation prize. I feel like that's a major misjustice to you know, his skill set and what he brings to the table. But at the same time, I think if you do potentially miss out on Davison, it's like it's not the end of the world, right? If this is why you recruit, you cast a wide net, you recruit as many elite guys as you possibly can within reason that are willing to hear you out, that are willing to do something as significant as taking an official visit and bringing their family with them, like you mentioned. So I think Michael Terry is still very much in play with Oregon. But again, maybe not a guy that I think right now Oregon leads for.
Can everybody read the comments that you and I can see at the bottom, or is it just you and me?
I think everybody can read it. I can select which ones I put up on the screen.
Oh, well, I love it. It's great. And I think my point to that is people, you know, folks seem to be excited about the prospect of Michael Terry here. And I love seeing that. And I know there was a comment ago about being a Josh Huff clone. And yeah, he's a little bigger than Josh Huff, but you get my point. He's one of those guys you put in the offense and you you're moving him around, you're motioning him. I mean, it seems like, it's a guy that you could really be versatile with. So I love you guys making these comments. Even more so, I love when you guys ask questions, because Max and I are going to get to those. But these live streams are really fun because it feels more interacting for both Max and I. So keep it coming, y'all.
So I think we've hit a lot of good stuff. We've hit on a lot of good stuff in Michael Terry. I think there's one more 5-star that we need to talk about.
Another one?
Another one. Yes. And then we'll try to get to some of these questions. I already have a handful of them starred. But believe it or not, Justin, you did write the visitor list, so you know who I'm talking about. Let's talk about Dakorien Moore, because I feel like we've talked about him all the time. But if we're going to talk about him some more, this is the weekend to do it, because the number one wide receiver in the country will be in Eugene for his official visit. And he's coming off of an official visit to Texas, which many view as the team to beat in this recruitment. And I think I feel the same way right now. Justin, it's going to be hard for Oregon to one-up what Texas did with more than 30 members of his family on his official visit with him out on the 40 acres in Austin. But hey, I mean, you can't underestimate what one team can do on a trip, certainly not Oregon. And I think this could be where we see that Rashad Samples factor really come into play. I mean, he's not the main recruiter, I would say, in this recruitment, but boy, it doesn't hurt if you're Oregon and Junior Adams trying to make some noise here.
No, that relationship's going to be paramount. I mean, and as much as Junior Adams has been a tremendous recruiter in his own right, and so there's no slight to him, I think Samples is the key here, because you're looking at obviously a very tight-knit family, being what they, all of them visiting Texas. And you're basically trying to say, hey, look, trust sending your boy up here away from Texas to be with us, and we'll develop him and make him a better young man and get him to his potential. I think that family, ties with Samples and his dad, obviously having ties to the Duncanville program there, that's going to be the paramount thing that Oregon has to sell. And you're really going to need to, lean into that. So Coach Samples is every bit as important as Junior Adams is, in this recruitment. I agree with you. If I was putting in a crystal ball today or a prediction, it would be for Texas. I think they're going to be really tough to beat. We do know this. We do know that Moore has been committed once already before, right? So whether he commits to Texas or Oregon or somewhere else, or whatever the case might be, or maybe he waits, we don't know. If you're Oregon and you don't get him, you're going to keep chopping wood. You're going to stick with him and hope that maybe you can get him back in October. That's the thing. Like, it's going to be a bummer. Like, say Oregon doesn't get any of these 5 stars. I totally get that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a bummer to take all these swings and miss all of them. But that said, there's a pretty damn big weekend in October in Eugene brewing already. And I got a feeling that list for that weekend is going to be freaking insane. Like, if I was Dan Lanning, I'd already have that circled and say, hey, look, if we miss on Dakorien Moore, if we miss on Jonah Williams, if we miss on whatever, we're going to bring those guys back in for October. We're already working that. So that's what I'd be doing. And that Oregon-Ohio State game might be the key to it all. Who knows?
And Jakeem Stewart told me that he was probably going to come back for that game. So that's kind of another development, even though he's in the 2026 class as of right now. But Oregon's receiver class is looking really solid. Maybe worth noting that they're going to bring in Dallas Wilson and Isaiah Mosey as well. So Moore can kind of talk to the guys that he would potentially be paired with if he were to commit to Oregon. Achilles Smith Jr. Is also going to be there. He'll make that trip after wrapping up with the Elite 11 finals today in Manhattan Beach. But we'll keep talking about Dakorien as long as there's still a legitimate shot for Oregon here. And like, I think we kind of both agree, Justin, even if he does commit to Texas, I don't think Oregon's going to go away in that recruitment by any means. There's one more guy I think I want to get to, because I haven't talked about him, I don't think, ever on the pod. And I think he's a really, really big visitor that maybe isn't being discussed enough.
Before you go there, I just want to say this.
Okay.
Could you imagine an Oregon team, a roster that trots out Dakorien Moore, Dallas Wilson, and Michael Terry? My word, that would be insane. Who knows? A guy can dream, right?
It would be insane. It would be insane for sure. But that's just, it's not a reality, but it's a possibility. just with the way that Oregon's operating right now. So last guy we'll talk about, and then we'll get to some of these questions, Justin, before we wrap up for today. Let's talk about Atlanta, Georgia, Westlake High School offensive lineman Juan Gaston. He is a towering 6'7", 360 pounds, according to his On3 profile. This is a guy that Alik Terry and Will Stein went out to Georgia to see in person during the spring evaluation period, Justin. And I want to say he was supposed to come out earlier in the spring, but I don't believe it ended up happening. This is probably the biggest name that they're bringing in this weekend, aside from like Aaron Dunn. But this guy's nasty. He's from the Southeast, and you're going up against the likes of Georgia for him.
Like legit, if I lined up across from this kid, I'd just lay down. I would just lay down back. Don't kill me. No, look at his, I mean, just the violence that he plays with. I mean, he's just absolutely no fear, loves the pancake monster. Maybe he should be the pancake honcho, but no, I mean, you could see why Oregon likes him. And I feel like we've said this a couple of times already. Try not to say it about everybody, but I low key think that Oregon is in a lot better shape here than people think. And so by no means am I saying Oregon leads. By no means am I saying Oregon's going to land him. But I think this is a very serious potential guy for Oregon. And if you put this guy, with Zaire Addison, obviously Dimitri Manning, and whatever else you can get at the offensive line recruiting, whether it's Aaron Dunn or whatever, that's a freaking formidable, sick, nasty group that you can work with. Anything on top of that would be icing on the cake. But yeah, I think Juan Gaston's a guy that Oregon has absolutely poured a ton of effort into. I recognize that he's not a 5-star, but I believe Oregon's recruited him in that way because I think like Omari and Robinson, Oregon views him higher on their board than some of these other guys. So,
my bad, I was muted there. Sorry, yeah, I'm looking at this tape while you're talking, Justin, and these are just like ridiculous blocks. I mean, he's like somersaulting on like not a majority, but a couple of these blocks just because he's just driving these guys into the ground so violently. But yeah, I've also kind of heard that I think Oregon's in a better spot than people think, and maybe that's the way Oregon wants to operate with some of these high profile recruits. Like, there's no benefit really, if you think about it, to kind of the cat being out of the bag, so to speak, about you leading for someone. I think you and I would prefer to know that, but we can keep that to ourselves every now and then, and to kind of prepare for things. But he's one of the biggest names on the offensive line for Alik Terry and Mike Cavanaugh, the rest of that group. One that were a finalist for the Joe Moore Award last year and produced the Remington Trophy winner. So I think those are all components of what's going to be sold to Juan Gaston on his official visit as far as the pitch goes, and we'll see where things go from there. But admittedly, I don't know as much about him as I'd like to, so I need to do some more research and make some more calls on my end.
I mean, I think this one's boiling down to Oregon versus Georgia, and that's the dangerous part. I'd feel a lot better if it was somebody other than Georgia, given that he's a Georgia kid. So this one's going to be, really tough for the Ducks. I do think that they're in it, but, given the fact that you're talking about a Georgia kid and Kirby Smart's on him, that's a really tough one. If I was Dan Lanning, I would love for this kid not to make a commitment early and to have a chance at him in October, November, whatever. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but we'll just kind of have to see how it plays out. But I agree with you. I think this one's a big one for the Ducks, so we'll have to see what happens. At least you're the last official visit that we are aware of in June for him.
All right, so we'll wrap up today's live stream with our mailbag portion of the show. I already got some questions starred, so I'll get to those ones first, and we'll do our best to get to as many as we can, Justin. But it is a busy time, so bear with us if we don't get to your question. Maybe you'll just have to tune in for another show. William De Silva asked, did Dakorien actually show up? I mean, I think the plan for a lot of these weekend visitors is to come in as early as Thursday evening. So based on the recent conversations that I've been able to have, it looks like he's going to take this visit, which I think is huge because of all the momentum that it seems Texas has right now in this recruitment. I know Oregon fans would love to see him make that trip alongside Keelan Russell. I know after getting to see Keelan Russell in person this week at the Elite 11, I mean, that dude is a dude. So I think it would be cool to still be covering him, but he's committed to Alabama now. But it looks like all signs are pointing towards Moore making this trip.
Yeah, he hasn't touched down yet. It's only noon here. And like you said, a lot of these guys will get here this evening. But the list that I was provided today included Moore on it. So that Oregon is expecting him to show up.
All right, there we go. Seems simple enough. So we'll keep rolling through these questions. This one's from Tom S. Last year we landed 3 5-stars, Mateo, Breland, Rushing, but all were West Coasters. This weekend we have 8 5-stars, which is insane, but not a single West Coast kid. A bit concerned or elated, regardless. Well, just to start, Mateo was a 2023 guy, so just a little note there. But I don't think it's a big deal that Oregon doesn't have, a huge West Coast presence this weekend. It's not like they're taking the USC approach and not recruiting the West Coast. But they have brought in, some of the guys that they're after on the West Coast, somewhat recently. It's not like they're forgetting about those guys. So I don't think it's a huge deal. I think that, Oregon is pushing the envelope to go even more national. They have to go national because of where they're located. So I'm not concerned at all about Oregon's prioritizing of the West Coast. I mean, a guy like Noah McHale was already in town for his official visit last weekend. So I think they got that taken care of, but this is just an insane list. So if you're Oregon, you got to be happy with it.
Yeah, it's a great list, and I this is something I said to start the calendar year of 2024 about the 2025 class. This is not a very good cycle out west at really any position group, but in particular along the line of scrimmage, and that's offensive linemen and defensive linemen. There's a couple guys. I mean, obviously there's a Josiah Sharma. Jackson Lloyd is a top 100 guy committed to Alabama as an offensive lineman. I think he's a tad bit overrated, but still. There's not an abundance of those dudes out west in the cycle. There's not really anybody in Arizona this year. Conversely, when you take a very, very early look at 2026, it's a really good group of defensive linemen out west in the next cycle. So as we see, Dan Lanning in Oregon is having to, fill in with guys outside the footprint, which Oregon's one of the few schools that's able to do that out west. So that's my answer to it. There's just those guys are not out here this year. That's the simple truth.
Moving along. Thanks for the question there, Tom. Our next question comes from Kay Gamlin. Who is this year's Elijah Rushing, i.e. the one recruit committed elsewhere, the staff or you feel best about a potential flip? This is a tough one, Justin, because there aren't like a ton of names that are already committed that Oregon's going after that I know of. Then again, it's only June, so that could very well change. I think depending on how the running back picture shapes up, I think we could see Oregon go after some committed running backs with Rashad Samples. I think right now, the one that I guess I would feel the best about, and I don't think Oregon leads, but he's coming this weekend, and we haven't talked about him, Keelan Moses, the LSU commit. I mean, the dude literally goes to school. When I was talking to him on the phone the other day, he was saying, I go to school on LSU's campus. So that's going to be hard to overcome, but Oregon and A&M are the two schools that are giving LSU the biggest battle right now. And no school, I don't think a school there's not a school in college football that is better at keeping in-state talent than LSU, in my opinion. But he's coming out this weekend, and the contact's been good. He likes where things are at. So we'll see. I guess I would say Keelan Moses, but I'm not even that confident right now. I'm not predicting it. I'm just kind of putting it out there.
I guess on the surface of this question, there isn't an Elijah Rushing. That was a 5-star edge guy that many of us, including myself, felt Oregon led for, and he kind of surprised everybody with the Arizona commitment. And it really just felt like, okay, this doesn't jive here. This isn't going to happen. And it didn't. I think this is a great question to ask in a month or so after we see some of these guys come off the board and where they end up. And then we could give a great answer there. The answer that I suppose I would give, and it's just a little bit of a guess, but we know Oregon wants to sign or would like to get a second quarterback in this class. So the best thing I can come up with is Houston Longstreet, committed to Texas A&M. We know Oregon has remained in contact there. I'm not saying a flip is imminent at all, That's not what I'm saying. Just like your Keelan Moses pick, it's like, okay, who's Oregon actively recruiting that's committed elsewhere right now? Those are kind of the two names that jump out. But really, there is no Elijah Rushing just yet, basically because there's no 5-star edges out west this year.
So we'll see what happens there. I think the only other name that maybe comes to mind, because I just talked to him, is Ty Hawkins, the TCU quarterback commit. Oregon's going to try to get him out for an unofficial next month. Got a couple more questions that we're getting into. This one we've talked about a little bit, but we'll hit on it anyway. Steezy PDX is a frequent listener and viewer of the show, so greatly appreciate you being here. The question is, out of all the 5-stars visiting, who do you think we have the best chance to close on? I think out of all the 5-stars, I'd probably go with Trey McNutt. And I think that we both kind of explained those picks earlier on in the show, but I think they've done a really good job prioritizing him. I think Ohio State's fallen off here, and I think that the Ducks are pretty solidly the team to beat right now.
Yeah, that would be my answer too. And just to add some variety, I would say maybe next is Michael Terry for me. But yeah, I would say Trey McNutt of the 5-star variety. And then I would put Michael Terry as a sort of close second, I guess.
Okay, there you go. Well, yeah, it's a short and sweet answer, but we still wanted to get to it because we appreciate you guys engaging with us and asking the questions. Diehard Duck fan, been going crazy in the chat, but we love to see it. A lot of questions and comments. What kind of recruiting contact is actually allowed in the quiet period? There seems to be some gray area there. So it looks like things are going to go dead. I don't know the exact date, but it's after this weekend. That's why we don't see any official visits coming next weekend. And it'll go for a majority of the month of July. So to my knowledge, just no visits are allowed either way. Recruits can't come to the Oregon or whatever school they're going to, and the staff can't go see them in person. But I think text messages and, FaceTiming calls, whatever, I feel like that's all fair game, just not face-to-face.
Yep. Yeah, no, basically there's a dead period and there's a quiet period. They're a little bit different, but basically it's going to boil down to no visits either way, like you said. Even in a dead period, recruits can call you anytime they want or message you, and you can respond. So it's like you said, it's a gray area. Everybody does it. It's like when USC used to pay for everybody, and now they can do it legally.
All right, so that's the question from Diehard Duck fan. A couple more here. Andrew with an offensive line question. Who do you think the Ducks have the best shot at among the remaining O-line targets? Fasusi, Utu, Dunn, Gaston, or whoever else you can think of? I think from that list, if you're asking me right now, I would probably say Aaron Dunn. I haven't interviewed Doug Utu. I don't know if you had any luck there, Justin. But I think Oregon's really prioritized the state of Utah, and I think they're in a good position heading into this weekend's visit. I wouldn't be surprised if they led coming out of the weekend, but I think that's probably my best guess as things stand right now.
Yeah, I think Aaron Dunn's the easy answer there. Utu did call me last night in the middle of my golf round, so I wasn't able to get to the call. But at least, we're on the verge of maybe getting an update from him. So he might be next. I would love to say Gaston, but like I said earlier, a Georgia kid that Georgia's in on is going to be tough for sure.
There you go. All right. Next one comes from Wink. With as high as Pickett is on Oregon, and then in parentheses, allegedly, why the precedent on Florida schools' success? Almost like a reason not to go to Oregon. I think, I guess he seems like an impressionable recruit as far as what he's seen on the field, which is kind of interesting to me because I think with some of these schools that have bad seasons, it's like, oh, okay, well, I can still see what's building. So it's kind of like the opposite approach, I guess, if you want to see what they're doing. Maybe you just want to see more success at your position or more, with Napier on the hot seat, you want to see if he can turn things around with Cristobal over there at Miami. You want to see if he can really make the most with all those resources. Things like that potentially come to mind for me. I don't think it's a reason not to go to Oregon by any means. I think you and I kind of got into that. I think with Oregon's case, I feel like it's only going to help them if he wants to wait and see what these teams can do on the field.
Yeah, I mean, you got a kid in the state of Florida. You're going to have a lot of family pulling you to stay close to home. Miami and Florida are obviously much closer than Oregon is. If you look at his list of finalists or the schools that everybody's talking about the most, Oregon's the only one that isn't in the footprint. Oregon's the only one out here, and everything else is down there in the Southeast. So, I think Florida has been a top school for him. And again, I think him making a decision later in the cycle, which is smart, just screams, let me see how some of these teams look on the field, and I'll make my decision. The one thing I didn't mention earlier that I wanted to, so I will now, is, DJ Pickett is a little bit of a longer, taller cornerback, and Oregon has obviously, and Oregon has done well. They're going to use that. They're going to lean into Gonzo was a tall guy. Kyrie Jackson was a taller guy. Jabbar Muhammad is not a short corner by any means. So I think Oregon's going to really lean in on that. And if Jabbar Muhammad's going to be one of the best corners in the country. So, hopefully Oregon can kind of maybe parlay that success into helping with Pickett.
I got a little bit more on Pickett, and then it looks like we have 2 more questions that I was going to dive into. Justin, how are you doing on timing and battery life?
Good. We're good. I mean, I can't sit here all day, but I got 40% battery left, and it's not it is afternoon, so I guess I could start drinking too. So yeah, let's hurry him up.
All right. My last comment on Pickett, I think I said it on the pod, like he was the guy I was probably most excited to see at On3 Elite, just because he's so hard to get a hold of. But you see a guy in person, and I think it really kind of puts things into perspective. We've seen each other in person a couple times, Justin. I'm not a giant. I'm 6 foot, maybe 6'1" on a really good day, but there's not too many of those. DJ Pickett is every bit of 6'4". It is actually insane how big that guy is, and just for the defensive back position. So I think that I like your points about Oregon using, they've kind of had that recipe for success with guys at his position. So we will have to see there. Andrew with another one about tight ends. I think that he might have asked this on the boards, or someone did. The Ducks need bare minimum 1 tight end and more likely 2. Who do you see being a better possibility, Cure or Brame? You want to start with this one?
They need to. I won't sugarcoat it. They need to land 2 guys in this cycle that they have confidence in. I still think Brame is the guy I put more money on, but my confidence in Cure has gone up tremendously as well.
Yeah, so I think we both have picks in for Brame. You've had yours in for a lot longer. I think Tennessee, maybe made things a little interesting with that visit this past weekend. But I think I get the feel that he's a guy who probably set his official visit schedule around Oregon, which kind of tips the hand as far as Oregon being the leader. I haven't seen anything that, suggests Oregon has lost any ground, so I still feel good about that. But yeah, with Cure, I think Brame is the better possibility, but Cure is the guy that I think they're really putting that full court press on, because he is, I don't think he's ranked the number 1 tight end in the country, but he might as well be with the way that Oregon's recruiting him. He absolutely loves the Ducks. I think that they did a really good job on that official visit. If you haven't read it, the dude was kind of a quote machine. So you should go read that one over on Scoop Duck, where he talked about his official visit, landing, picking him up at the airport, all that stuff. But I think Brame right now, but I agree with you. I think they have made up some significant ground with Cure.
I think Cure's the number 2 tight end in the country, and Brame is 4 or 5. So you're looking at, and that's just off memory, but you're looking at them possibly signing 2 of the top 5 tight ends in this class, potentially.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. StreamYard's showing me 565 people in the stream between Twitter and YouTube. Nope. So we love to see that. Thank you guys for showing out. Micah time.
Tell a friend. Keep coming back. Tell a friend.
Spread the word for sure. Micah time. We'll make this one our last question, because we got more stuff going on and more stuff to get to. Miami's pushing hard to flip Dallas Wilson. Thoughts, Justin? What do we think?
Appreciate you, Micah, because I know you've made a couple comments and questions, so we appreciate those. It's the reverse of what we've been talking about. Oregon's playing the long game with some of these other guys. Maybe they commit elsewhere. It's the long game with Dallas, right? Miami's doing the same thing. We know, obviously, he's committed to Oregon. He has done and said everything right, that he's committed to Oregon and remained solid with that. I think Miami's shot is that they need to perform on the field, and they need to have a friggin' offensive pulse. You know what I mean? Like, let's not kid ourselves. Watching some of the offenses under Mario Cristobal at Oregon were really tough. They haven't been much better at Miami. I think that's the key to it all right there. I mean, what do they show on the field? You kind of know what to expect from Oregon at this point, whether it's Dillingham or Will Stein. It's been a good offense. Junior Adams has a tremendous resume for developing wide receivers, which is a big reason Wilson is committed. So, yeah, I mean, they're pushing, but I mean, so far, all things are good. And the more of these Tampa area commits Oregon can get, obviously they got Zaire Addison. Maybe they can get DJ Pickett. Every one of those is a feather in the cap and helps Oregon's chances on keeping Wilson.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add there. I mean, that's pretty much the same vibe that I get on the Wilson recruitment. What's going to be interesting, I guess, as far as just keeping an eye on is what other official visits he takes, because I think those are kind of maybe solidified as more of your main contenders to hang on to him. But, I agree as far as just, I don't know, I just find myself asking a legitimate question, not even just because Cristobal's at Miami and he was at Oregon. Like, it's not like a sour grapes type of thing, but like legitimately, there has to be some concern when these wide receivers commit to Miami just because of the on-field product we've seen. But we got a whole fresh season ahead of us, new possibilities. Maybe the offense will look different. I have to give credit where it's due that there's a possibility for that. But just looking at the track record, I'm not really sure. But it looks like all the in-state schools are pretty much involved. Even UCF is involved with Dallas Wilson, he told me. So Oregon's going to do everything they can there to hang on to Dallas Wilson. But Justin, any final thoughts here? I mean, we've gone almost double what we thought we were going to, but we just got such a great turnout today.
It's a 5-star show. I mean, we got 5 stars to talk about. You're a 5-star. I'm a high 4-star. I mean, it's a 5-star show. No, we appreciate, love the comments. Love Andrew. Love that comment. Love you guys for asking questions. It honestly makes things better and more enjoyable for us to answer questions and the things that you guys are thinking about that maybe we're missing. So keep them coming, keep tuning in, listen back to them, and be ready to answer questions or ask questions next time. And Max, thanks for setting these up. All I got to do is sit here and just talk. It's really easy.
It's a fun time. It's a fun time for sure. But no, great turnout, and appreciate all the kind words from everybody. Just to kind of wind us down here, you guys are excited. We're excited about this weekend and kind of what can come from it. And you know what we're going to tell you? There's only one place you got to be if you want to know what's going on, and that is scoopduck.com. Smaller storyline that we didn't even talk about. Trajan Odom is set to come off the board on June 28th. Chad Simmons hopped in our boards and said that Oregon is looking like they are probably the team to beat there, which I've felt very good about as well for a while. I don't really think that USC official visit is that big of a deal. So just putting that out there. But yeah, seriously, you guys, you got to check us out. We got a bunch of awesome content over there. Got an interview with Achilles Smith from his Elite 11 finals performance, and there's just so much going on. But before I get to the outro, Justin, any final thoughts to add?
Well, I'll add a thought on Trajan Odom. Momentum is absolutely 100% a real thing. And right now, USC's momentum is like this, so Odom could be a big piece for the Ducks. And yeah, I'm about to write an update, as you know, of I'm basically calling my shot on some of these top guys that I think are going to come off the board in the next few weeks and who I think Oregon gets. So when you get done with the show, head on over to Scoop Duck, because I'm going to work on that and get it posted here soon.
Absolutely. And then I'm going to get into what I'm writing is the most in-depth official visit preview you're going to find anywhere on the web. I'm talking like maybe more than 1,000 words. Maybe I should try to cut it down, but I mean, this is the time to go all in because Dan Lanning and the Ducks are looking to sign another historic class potentially. But if you want to find more of that guy, Justin, you can find him on Twitter/X at JHopkinsSD. You can find me on any social media platform at mtorresports. Subscribe to the Scoop Duck YouTube channel and share the show, share the Ducks Dish podcast with your friends, with your family, and with other Duck fans. And thank you so much for taking some time to talk some ball with us today. Thanks to J-Hop for coming on, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.